so much to cover. We're asking you to summarize your entire lives during the craziest 9 months of your careers, I would assume, in just a matter of minutes. So when we do our intros, I'm going to ask you to do a bit of a lightning round question to kind of tease what you're going to be talking about for the rest of our session here. And Paul, I want to go to you first. First of all, just what your role at the NBA, just in case anybody isn't aware. And in 30 seconds or less, what's the single biggest surprise or challenge that you ended up being confronted with once that season got off and running? And how did you work with the broadcast partners of the NBA to overcome that?
Thanks, Jason. Glad to be here. Paul Benedict, Vice President, Broadcast Content Management for the NBA. I've been with the league. This will be my 17th season now. I oversee the day-to-day relationships with our national partners and our regional and team partners. Great question. I'd say the phrase scenario planning became very real, very quickly, and very challenging. And we say this all the time. I think having to shift to a virtual world, communication became challenging, but just utterly critical. Just talking to everyone, learning best practices, problem solving, crisis management was essential. That was the biggest challenge, in a lot of ways, the biggest success.
Yeah, crisis management took on an entirely new meaning this year, I think. Want to go to Onnie next. Onnie, again, what's your role for those that aren't aware at the National Football League? And what was that one big surprise or challenge that you were able to overcome? Or is it still coming as the season progresses?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. I am Vice President of Broadcasting for the NFL in my 15th season. And similar to what Paul described, I'm responsible for our day-to-day relationships with our network partners, and I'm also a core part of our scheduling team. So I think with those two areas of focus, the biggest surprises were certainly the initial shutdown and all the events in March that we all experienced, and the NBA was on the front lines of. And for us, it was going from the final stages of planning a tentpole event of the draft in Las Vegas with 100,000 fans or more, and hundreds of prospects and team officials, and having 5 weeks to switch that to a fully virtually distributed model and kind of achieving all the goals we had. And I think really being that first sports event come back. And then now, Jason, as you refer to, really the surprise and the challenge is getting all the games played. Let's get to February 7th and then get that Super Bowl in. Right.
Yeah. None of us expected Wednesday afternoon football, I think, when all this started, but we got it and it was great. Patti Fallick from the USTA. Patti, first of all, well done. Watched so much of the Open this year, and it was tremendous. It was really exciting to see high-profile tennis again. But you had the task really of a global event. It's very different than, while you faced a lot of the same challenges, I'm sure, it's very different than what the other three panelists here. So real quick, just on background, your role at the association, and what was that big challenge that you were able to overcome?
Thanks, Jason. Going into my 5th year now with USTA and the US Open, and I can't believe how time has been flying by, but this year was extremely challenging for sure. They say that partnerships are formed in prosperity and show their strength in adversity. That was never more true than for us. The relationships with our global rights holders, our domestic partner in ESPN, and they're also our host broadcaster, was never more challenging than this year. The relationships, making sure that we were communicating with them on a constant basis. We set up weekly calls with our teams and our broadcast partners and sponsors, that what we called them Ask Us Anything calls, and they could literally ask us anything. The calls were kept confidential, and we gave them all the information that we had, which was fluid and changing on an ongoing basis. But the transparency was greatly appreciated by our broadcast partners. But not having all of our global broadcasters on site and making sure that they had the tools and the content that they needed to broadcast the US Open worldwide was really critical.
Absolutely. And we'll dig deeper as we get in here. Hey, Bernadette, how are you? We got your camera on. Happy to have you. And look, Major League Baseball faced among the greatest challenges of many challenges for all the leagues, but you guys not having a bubble and working with so many regional sports network partners. Just real quick background on your role at MLB for those that aren't familiar, and that one big challenge that you were able to take on.
Hi, thank you for having me. Bernadette McDonald, I've been at the league office for over 30 years, through many partners, every broadcast partner. And I oversee the network scheduling and then also network production operations, along with the club rights holders, radio and TV, with what the RSNs with broadcasting, and coordinate that whole effort. And I think that it was certainly just that world feed concept at 30 different ballparks, and just piecing that together. As everything was fluid, we didn't know when we were going to start. We kind of developed that game plan, and then it was kind of wait and see when we're going to actually have players show up. And that whole concept about what you can do with one main production truck feeding everyone's needs, and everyone playing nice in a sandbox to accomplish what each partner needs for their air back home in their host city, or back in Bristol, Atlanta, or LA.